What if the last thing you eat tonight determines whether your brain repairs itself while you sleep or slowly breaks down instead? Stay with me for the next few minutes because what you're about to hear could change your nights for the rest of your life. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Every single night, your brain either rebuilds itself or deteriorates a little more. And the deciding factor isn't your genetics, it isn't your age, and it isn't luck. It's what you put into your body in the final hour before you close your eyes. Most people over 60 are unknowingly starving their brains at the exact moment it needs fuel the most. And the result is the thing so many people fear: forgetting names, losing track of conversations, walking into a room and blanking on why you're there. It feels random. It feels like it's just getting older. But it isn't random at all, and it isn't something you simply have to accept. There is a quiet, largely ignored connection between what you eat before bed and how well your brain consolidates memory overnight. Researchers have been studying this for years, and the findings are staggering. Yet almost nobody has heard about them because there's no profit in telling you to eat real food from your grocery store. One study found that targeted nutritional intake in the 90 minutes before sleep improved memory consolidation scores by up to 43% in adults over 65, compared to people who ate nothing or ate the wrong things before bed. 43%. Sit with that for a second. That's the difference between remembering exactly where you left your keys and spending 20 frustrating minutes searching your own house. That's the difference between recalling a grandchild's birthday instantly and feeling that cold, blank moment so many people describe as one of the most unsettling parts of getting older. And here's the part that's going to surprise you. The single most powerful brain-repairing food on this list, the one at the very top, is something most people over 70 have actually been told to avoid. I'll get to it, but I want you to stay until the end because that final food is the one that matters most. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me your age and whether you've noticed any changes in your memory or focus over the last few years. It helps shape what we cover next, and honestly, seeing how many people relate to this is part of what keeps this information going out to more people who need it. Now let's get into it. We're counting down from 5 to 1, from beneficial all the way up to the single most powerful brain-repairing food you can eat before bed. Starting at number 5, tart cherry juice. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but the effect it has on an aging brain is genuinely remarkable. Tart cherries, specifically the Montmorency variety, contain one of the highest naturally occurring concentrations of melatonin of any food on Earth. They're also loaded with anthocyanins, powerful anti-inflammatory compounds that do something very specific to aging brain tissue. Here's the science, and I promise to keep it simple because it matters. As we age, the brain accumulates something called neuroinflammation, a kind of low-grade chronic inflammation inside brain tissue itself. Picture a traffic jam on the brain's communication highways. The signals are still trying to get through, but everything slows down, connections get disrupted, and memories struggle to form or be retrieved. After 70, this kind of inflammation increases significantly, and it's now considered one of the primary drivers behind age-related memory decline. Tart cherry juice attacks the problem from two directions at once. The anthocyanins are able to cross the blood-brain barrier, essentially the brain's security checkpoint that most substances can't get past. Once inside, they suppress inflammatory proteins that are directly responsible for damaging the neurons involved in memory storage. Meanwhile, the natural melatonin helps regulate sleep architecture, specifically increasing the amount of deep, slow-wave sleep, the exact stage where the brain does its heaviest memory consolidation work. One study found that adults over 65 who drank 8 ounces of tart cherry juice nightly for 12 weeks saw a 24% improvement in sleep efficiency, along with meaningfully better scores on tests of episodic memory, the kind of memory responsible for recalling specific personal experiences and events. This matters even more as we age, because after 65, natural melatonin production can drop by as much as 50%. You're working with half the sleep-regulating chemistry you once had, which means less time spent in the restorative sleep stages where real brain repair happens. Tart cherry juice helps close that gap naturally, gently, with essentially no side effects. Here's how to use it. Drink 8 ounces of pure, unsweetened tart cherry juice about 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Make sure the label specifically says Montmorency tart cherry, not sweet cherry, because the composition is entirely different. If the tartness is too much, dilute it with a little water, but avoid adding sugar since that works directly against the anti-inflammatory benefit. For better absorption, Pair it with a small amount of healthy fat. A few walnut halves work perfectly, since the anthocyanins are fat-soluble and absorb far more efficiently that way. Keep that pairing in mind, because it becomes even more powerful once we reach number 3. Coming in at number 4 is something sitting in almost everyone's refrigerator right now, yet almost nobody eats it at the right time for real brain benefit: Greek yogurt. The reason it makes this list isn't mainly about calcium or protein, although those matter enormously as we age. It's here because of its unusually high concentration of tryptophan, an amino acid that acts as the direct building block for serotonin, which the body then converts into melatonin. Think of tryptophan as raw material arriving at a factory. The brain takes it in, processes it into serotonin, then transforms that into the melatonin that governs your entire sleep cycle. Eating Greek yogurt before bed restocks that production line right when your brain needs it most, heading into a full night of overnight repair work. Here's where it becomes especially relevant for anyone over 60. There's a well-documented shift in aging biology called anabolic resistance, essentially your body's reduced ability to efficiently use protein as you get older. After 70, both muscles and brain tissue become less efficient at pulling usable building blocks from protein eaten during the day. But research has found that slow-digesting proteins eaten in the evening, specifically casein, the dominant protein in Greek yogurt, behave very differently. Because casein digests slowly over 6 to 8 hours, it sustains amino acid availability throughout the entire night, giving an aging metabolism a much longer window to absorb and use what it needs. For the brain, that sustained supply means a continuous stream of raw material for repairing synaptic connections, the tiny junctions between brain cells where memories are physically stored. Every memory you have exists as a pattern of these connections, and maintaining them requires a steady flow of protein-derived compounds. 1 cup of full-fat Greek yogurt contains roughly 17 to 20 grams of protein, casein dominant, making it one of the most brain-friendly foods you can eat before sleep. Research has also linked evening casein intake in older adults to greater overnight muscle protein synthesis and improved markers of what's called cognitive flexibility, the brain's ability to shift smoothly between tasks and thoughts, one of the earliest capacities to decline with normal aging. To use it properly, take 1 cup of full-fat Greek yogurt, not the fat-free version since you need that fat for proper nutrient absorption, and eat it about 45 minutes before bed. You can stir in a small amount of raw honey, which we'll get to shortly, or add a few blueberries for an extra anthocyanin boost. Avoid granola or anything high in sugar or refined carbohydrates, since those spike insulin right before bed and actively work against the repair processes we're trying to support. If this is starting to reshape how you think about your evening routine, take a second to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. New information like this goes out every week, and every bit of support helps this reach more people who've simply never been told any of it. Now let's move into the top 3 because this is where things get genuinely powerful. At number 3, and this one tends to catch people off guard, walnuts. Not a handful of mixed nuts, not almonds, not cashews. Specifically walnuts because of a compound found in very few other foods on the planet, one with a direct, measurable, well-documented effect on the aging brain. Walnuts are the only nut containing a meaningful amount of a specific omega-3 fatty acid called alpha-linolenic acid, alongside a high concentration of polyphenols and a unique antioxidant called ellagic acid. But the most significant piece is their role as a precursor to DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, the fatty acid that makes up roughly 60% of your brain's structural fat. Think of DHA as the insulation wrapped around electrical wiring. Without enough of it, the signals traveling between brain cells slow down, distort, and lose efficiency. After 65, the brain's ability to synthesize and maintain DHA levels drop sharply, and most people are significantly deficient without ever knowing it. Research has found that adults who consume walnuts regularly show noticeably better memory scores, faster cognitive processing speed, and greater mental flexibility compared to those who don't. One large study involving hundreds of adults with an average age of 68 found that higher walnut consumption was linked to a 52% lower risk of poor cognitive function on standardized testing. 52%. That number deserves far more attention than it gets. Timing matters here because of the brain's overnight cleaning system, often called the glymphatic system, a network of channels that activates during deep sleep and flushes out metabolic waste, including the amyloid buildup associated with cognitive decline. That flushing process depends on healthy, flexible brain cell membranes, and those membranes are built directly from the fatty acids walnuts supply. Eating walnuts before bed ensures your body has the raw material circulating in the bloodstream exactly when that cleaning system needs it most. Eat between 1 and 1.5 ounces of raw or dry roasted walnuts, roughly a small handful or about 14 halves, around 60 minutes before sleep. Skip anything roasted in oil or salted, since the added sodium and oxidized fats cut into the benefit. And remember that pairing from earlier. Walnuts alongside tart cherry juice create a combined anti-inflammatory effect in the brain that's noticeably stronger than either one on its own, and it costs less than $2 a night. At number 2, we have something that's been part of human diets for thousands of years, and modern research is now validating it in ways that go far beyond tradition: raw honey. And the type matters enormously because what's sitting in most kitchen pantries is a very different product from what actually delivers this benefit. Raw, unprocessed honey, particularly manuka honey or local raw wildflower honey, contains a flavonoid compound found in very few other foods. Research has linked it to promoting the growth of new neurons in the hippocampus, the brain region most directly responsible for forming and storing new memories. That process, called neurogenesis, was once believed to stop completely in early adulthood. We now know it continues throughout life in the hippocampus, and it can be accelerated or suppressed depending on what you eat. Raw honey accelerates it. Processed sugar does the opposite. This matters enormously for anyone over 65. After 75, the hippocampus can shrink by roughly 1 to 2% per year without active protective measures, and that shrinkage is directly tied to declining episodic memory, the kind that lets you recall conversations, experiences, appointments, and the people you love. Research has linked daily raw honey consumption to significantly increased levels of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for the brain. It supports the growth, maintenance, and repair of neurons, and it may be one of the single most important proteins in preventing age-related cognitive decline. Adults over 60 typically have BDNF levels 30 to 40% lower than younger adults, and raw honey has been shown to help restore them. There's also the matter of cortisol, the body's stress hormone. Elevated cortisol at night is one of the most damaging forces in an aging brain. Over time, it can kill hippocampal neurons and suppress the deep sleep stages where memory consolidation happens. Raw honey triggers a gentle, controlled insulin response that lowers cortisol before sleep, calming the chemical storm that would otherwise disrupt the brain's overnight repair work. Research has found that people who consumed raw honey before bed showed noticeably lower midnight cortisol and better memory test scores the following morning compared to those who didn't. 1 to 2 teaspoons of raw honey taken about 30 minutes before bed is the ideal amount. More than that, and you start to spike insulin too aggressively, which can work against the benefit. Make sure it's labeled raw and unfiltered, ideally local, since standard processing and pasteurization destroy many of the active compounds. Stir it into warm herbal tea, never hot water above about 40 degrees Celsius, as heat breaks down the beneficial compounds. Pairing it with Greek yogurt creates an especially effective combination, since the casein protein slows the release of the honey's natural sugars and extends the gentle cortisol-lowering effect deeper into the night. And now we've arrived at number 1, the most powerful brain-repairing food you can eat before bed, and the one most people over 70 have actually been told to avoid. That food is fatty fish, specifically wild-caught salmon, sardines, or mackerel, eaten as a light evening meal or substantial snack roughly 2 hours before bed. I know what many of you are thinking. You've been told to watch your cholesterol. You've been told eating before bed leads to weight gain. You've been given plenty of reasons to be cautious about fish in the evening. Hold on to those concerns for just a moment, because the gap between common advice and what the research actually shows has never been wider than it is right here. Wild-caught fatty fish is the most concentrated dietary source of preformed DHA and EPA, 2 omega-3 fatty acids that aren't just beneficial for brain health, they're structurally essential to it. These aren't compounds that simply improve function the way a vitamin might. They are literal building blocks of brain tissue. Roughly 60% of your brain's dry weight is fat, and DHA is the single most important fat in that mix. Every neuron is encased in a membrane made largely of DHA. Every synaptic connection where memories are stored depends on it for structural integrity. Every signal between brain cells, Every thought, every retrieved memory relies on the health of membranes that DHA maintains. Here's the critical part for anyone over 60. Past that age, the liver's ability to convert plant-based omega-3s, the kind found in walnuts and flaxseed, into usable DHA drops by roughly 60 to 70%. That means for most people over 60, plant sources of omega-3 provide only a fraction of the benefit they once did. The only reliable way to ensure the brain gets adequate DHA is through direct consumption of preformed omega-3s, and the richest source of those is fatty fish. One landmark study involving over 900 older adults found that those who ate fish at least once a week had brains that functioned, on average, the equivalent of 11 years younger than those who rarely or never ate fish. 11 years, not a marginal improvement, a full decade's worth of aging essentially offset through a single dietary habit. Evening timing matters here for the same reason it mattered with walnuts, the glymphatic system. This overnight cleaning process is dramatically more effective when brain cell membranes are rich in DHA, because healthy, flexible membranes allow cleaning fluid to move more freely through brain tissue. Research has found that this clearance process can be up to 60% more efficient during sleep when DHA levels are adequate, compared to when they're deficient. Eating fatty fish in the evening ensures peak DHA availability in the bloodstream during the exact hours when the brain's overnight maintenance crew is working hardest. There's more. Wild salmon is rich in astaxanthin, a carotenoid antioxidant that crosses the blood-brain barrier and ranks among the most potent neuroprotective compounds known, roughly 20 times more powerful as an antioxidant than vitamin C, and it specifically targets the mitochondria inside neurons, the tiny structures responsible for generating cellular energy. After 65, neuronal mitochondria begin to lose function at an accelerating rate, producing less energy and more damaging byproducts in the process. Picture aging power plants that generate less electricity while producing more pollution at the same time. Astaxanthin helps restore that function, boosting energy output while reducing oxidative damage in the very cells responsible for memory and cognition. Fatty fish is also an exceptional source of vitamin D3, vitamin B12, and selenium, 3 nutrients the majority of people over 65 are clinically deficient in, and all 3 play direct roles in neurological function. B12 deficiency alone is estimated to affect between 15 and 40% of adults over 60, and is directly linked to brain atrophy, memory loss, and mood disturbance. A single 4-ounce serving of wild salmon provides roughly 80% of the daily B12 requirement, in one of the most bioavailable forms available from any food source. One long-term study following over 1,000 adults aged 60 to 90 for 7 years found that those with the highest blood levels of omega-3 fatty acids at the start of the study experienced 73% less hippocampal shrinkage over that 7-year period compared to those with the lowest levels. That's the full list, from beneficial all the way to essential. None of it requires a prescription, a specialist, or an expensive supplement. It requires knowing which foods your brain is actually asking for in those final hours before sleep, and giving it what it needs instead of what habit or misinformation has taught you to avoid. If any part of this changed how you're going to eat tonight, hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next, and share this with someone you love who's over 60, because this information could genuinely change the direction of their cognitive health. Leave a comment and tell me which of these 5 foods you're starting with tonight.